Okay, everybody, this is Sun Cobra 00 with take 4 on my literary review of Twilight by Stephanie Meyer. I know, take 4. Right, it didn't come out well at all, again. Anyway, I've been researching a little bit on the internet and of course YouTube, seen a lot of people, some hate it, some love it. Well, I didn't think it was fair to throw my 2 cents into the pot without having read it first. I accomplished it within a night, and I'd like to share it with you. Now, before I go on, I have to say that my literary review will probably have spoilers in it, so you might want to change the channel if you haven't read the book yet, or you just don't wish to know. Now, I'll go home with a summary. Alright, Twilight is about a girl named Isabella Swan who comes from Phoenix, Arizona, who travels up to Washington State and meets the handsome and irresistible Edward the Vampire with the perfect face and perfect lips. Anyway, the book centers around the relationship. That's basically the entire book. And of course, Bella's infatuation with Edward stems solely from his physical attractiveness and his mysterious danger as a vampire. This is the basis of their entire relationship, I know. And the fact that you never actually get a sense that Bella actually loves Edward for being an actual person. Maybe they hint at this at the very end, but nowhere near to the point where anyone would actually care. Now, with Edward, she sees Edward as just something she has to have, like a big trophy. A trophy that she has to sit on her mantle or something. I mean, he certainly shines like one. Now we go with Bella. Bella is about as generic and uninteresting as they come. Now, with a story like Twilight, I can sort of understand this. Now, with Myers kind of going for any 16-year-old girl can imagine themselves in the tresses of Bella as she walks down the beautiful greenery of Washington State with Edward on her arm or on his back. Now, I can totally understand this. It's a great way to make money. I mean, just look at all the other stuff that's going on right now. And the fact that she can turn this into a 4-book series? Come on, that's a sure way to make money. Anyway, beyond the money look. Okay, Isabella is a Mary Sue. The entire world revolves around her. Her thoughts, her feelings, and her view on the world is the only one which seems to matter for the majority of the plot. I mean, when she first comes to school, everybody is enamored by her, and she explains this away just because she's from a big city and she's just in some small hick town, and I haven't seen anybody like her before. That's just ridiculous. I don't care where you're from. There's no reason except for if you have some sort of outstanding quality that people would even take the time to even look in your direction. And I'm guessing and like I said, it's a great way for like little girls to get into it because they get to experience the life they always wanted with someone like Edward at their arm, and everybody's staring at them and talking behind their back and getting jealous. In fact, that's the entire basis for all the other minor characters in the story. They're just background characters. They're the scenery. They're stage props. There is no reason for them to take spotlight away from or even challenge Bella at all. Not one character, a minor character, not one human character challenges Bella at all. They are absolutely nothing in terms of the story. Even the vampires suffer from this, maybe to a lesser extent because they're vampires, whether it be she was just more interested or maybe she didn't care, but that's just what happens. And that's pretty pathetic because you have a chance of explaining, people who might be from the area. I mean, she may be hinting a little bit with Jacob Black, but of course he doesn't make a big enough splash in the story to actually matter, so you can pretty much push him off to the side with the rest of them. Now, here's the problem with this. Now, supposedly, their entire relationship is supposedly with Bella caring for Edward, but Edward can't reciprocate or is afraid to reciprocate his love toward Bella in the full way possible because of his urges as a vampire. Now, we haven't seen this before. We've seen this before, and usually it can end well or bad, but usually not without some great emotional turmoil. The problem with this is that she waters down the vampire mythology so much you don't really care, and the fact that Isabella is not interesting at all just makes it fall even more flat. I mean, think about it. I mean, she has them. They basically call them vegetarian vampires, where they only eat animals, and they are in complete control at all times. And when he goes on a date with Bella, a human girl, the guy is a century years old and supposed to be a virgin, which is just absolutely ridiculous. Anyway, he says he's a virgin, and he says he only has eyes for Bella, which is absolutely ridiculous. He's a century years old. He's lived two world wars, one Great Depression, and many world conflicts. Not to mention all the people dying of the institutions, of the people, and everything else he's seen around him. Why? Why, of all people, would she? Why would she? Is she important? Nobody should be that important, unless there's some good reason behind it, and there isn't. It's just like he was made. Just a great god made in the sky, a golden lamb, a Pegasus made exactly for her just to ride on over clouds into the sunset. That's what Edward is. That's what it was. That's what the entire purpose of the book is. Okay? And this makes her completely uninteresting, and to the point where, unless you're seeing yourself as Bella, you do not care. Now, as I go with along in the later parts of the story, where she goes meets Edward's parents, his family, and such, and she gets to research into his history, mainly about Edward's adopted father named Carlisle, about he used to be a part of the church until he was turned into a vampire. It actually goes into the part of his pains. It goes into his religious conflicts. It goes into his social conflicts. It goes into loneliness. It goes into different parts of being a vampire. It goes into him searching for some sort of identity. Now this is what makes a good novel. This is so much more interesting than anything Bella or Edward could come up with. Unless you're unless you're looking for like a sex novel or something. Anyway, it just makes that much better of a story. This is more of the highlight. Well, this and a part at the end where basically she gets the crap kicked out of her by another vampire, and to be honest with you, I was cheering because something bad was actually happening to her, not just falling over. By the way, the fact that she's supposed to be clumsy, not good at sports, and always gets into trouble, that's just more Suish behavior. She just gets more attention that way, like a little kid who cries at like 3 years old because mom won't buy him a toy. It gets him more attention, and that's exactly what he wants. I wouldn't be surprised if it was a plot point later in the story that she's just pretended to follow for all the time, just so other people would stare and look at her because she wanted the attention. That's what it was. It's not a real fault. There's no way to challenge her. Nothing mentally, nothing emotionally. It's not a real fault. You just draw more attention to her. Alright, now I'll go on with the vampire mythos. Okay, with the mythos, I know she takes some pretty big liberties with it. And most people, they take some liberties with, how long they can stay in the sunlight, or how exactly a person has to turn to a vampire, or how potent, how strong they are, how they can jump, what they can do. But basically, there's always an underlying theme that vampires are dangerous and they have urges, and you basically you can never trust them. With what she does with the vampire mythos, with so-called vegetarian vampires, you don't fear them at all. I mean, to be honest with you, there is no real reason why nobody else is a vampire. In the Bram Stoker novels, Dracula was Dracula. He was an evil monster. Stay away from him. You don't want to be like him. Don't get bitten. That was the entire point. With this one, you want to be a vampire. The only reason you're not a vampire is because your friends are not a vampire, and your family's not a vampire, and the president's not a vampire. If everybody was a vampire, the only problem they would have is food, and maybe overpopulation. Like they have sex drives. Anyway, like I said before, it takes away from the whole danger. The entire premise of the relationship was that Edward could eat Bella at any time if he couldn't control his urges, but he's eating animal meat all the time, and he never skips a meal. So there's no danger coming from him. He's just a big doll for her to play with, and people love that about her. That's the entire premise of it. It makes a shallow story. You don't care about the characters. You don't care what happens to Bella. You don't care what happens to the vampires. You don't care if her legs get broken. You don't care if she's defenestrated. You don't care about any of the even the interesting characters because it's poisoned. Okay, I have to stop.